Hello and welcome to Deep In Pact, a proud member of the Doof Network, where we dive deep into Warbur's most bibliophilic work 5 years on. Coming up next is Elliot Diebold.
And that was Ruben Morehouse.
And we are back to talk about Possession 15.2, which has Blake and company continue to fight their way upwards through the Abyss Library.
Yeah, and so again, I was just blown away by how much I love the setting of this arc, just the library. One of the things that happens right at the start of this chapter is we learn that the place is solidifying, so it's not that you're just gonna fall through the floor at any point now. The terrain is less of a concern, but now we just have monsters crawling out of the woodwork, and not just monsters, but other people too. And it's just the image of this team running around. They've all got guns and they're shooting at monsters as they're trying to climb the staircase.
Yeah,
it's like the end of an action movie, or specifically, I don't know why it put this in my mind so much, but a few of the Uncharted games, you finish them by crawling back out of whatever hole you've dug yourself in during the game, and you got things jumping at you from the roof and stuff, and it's just so fucking awesome.
It really gives me a kind of zombie vibe, right? They're just fighting what seems to feel like an endless horde. And I love it because it sets up this idea of, there's a reason there's this endless horde. It's because they're making too much noise in the library, of course. But you don't know this at the start. And so it sets up this vibe of just, there's infinite monsters that can come after you here.
Yes, exactly. Because even though they're not described or anything, I'm assuming that Wabo in his head probably had this variety of monsters that were popping out. In the visual adaptation, it wouldn't just be all these same looking zombies being reused hundreds of times. There would be all sorts of crazy others.
Yeah, definitely. Something else that's nice is right towards the start we see Nick, the leader of the Knights of the Basement, also known as Shotgun, yelling that he's out of ammo, and that's such a good little shorthand for we've run out of resources. We're running out of resources, so get ready for a real scrappy fight.
Yeah, because you just get this sense that the Abyss is throwing everything at them, and as you said, later on we kind of learn why, but I think the bit that pushes it from just an exciting action scene to also having that packed twinge of tragic to it is how some of these people coming at them aren't even boogeymen yet. It's just lost souls. Basically the Abyss is plucking presumably people who have gotten lost in it from all around the world, and is just throwing them in here and saying, hey, have a go in here. And that could have been Blake 5 arcs ago.
Yeah,
6 arcs ago.
Do you think the Abyss just has a kind of near infinite supply of people who have been forgotten and they're just waiting in a dark void? They've gone mad, and just as soon as the Abyss puts them in front of somebody, they'll, go crazy?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to learn there's something like that.
Great.
If you just think about the whole world, there's possibly millions of people in the Abyss. It is presumably very easy for it to just pluck a couple of hundred from around the world and dump them here.
Yeah, God. What a place. So Nick gets kind of charged by this ink other, and Blake kind of gets him just in time to scrap with it, kind of tackling it, fighting it. It's a chapter full of little scraps.
Yeah. And so obviously this other is pretty cool. It's it's made out of ink, and after it kind of stains Blake by attacking him, he says to it, it's a shame you're the arsehole kind of monster, because I really miss my old tattoos. And first of all, that line is badass, but also I was no more tattoos for you. Look at what they've become. I get that he misses them, but it seems like he's let them take over him, and he doesn't even realize it's. I can't decide if I read this as something Blake or something is this a good or a bad thing? I'm all over the place with this line.
Elliot, surely if he gets tattoos from this ink monster, those will be totally normal and not weird in any way.
Yeah, exactly.
I really love this ink monster. It's just another great example of something that I think is pretty obvious, but it bears repeating. Wildbow's just really good at coming up with a variety of weird, different monsters. This ink guy is
Yeah.
like a living acid monster, but themed around ink, which gives it another bunch of cool stuff. Like, fuck, it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, even just boogeymen in the world of Pact are enough. Like, you could do a whole X-Files type TV show where they just hunt boogeymen, and,
Yeah.
there's a different theme to each one, and that affects how you've got to bind them. But that's just one type of other in this world. It's so great.
Yeah. There's this other quote that I want to read out where Blake yells to Evan, and as a response, he sees monsters coming out of the woodwork, some very literally, which is a great line. And it just it's the kind of pair of lines that you don't put together initially, but serves a reread of this chapter so well, where you see, oh yeah, of course, they come out of the woodwork literally after he yells out, because it's the library. It's one of these little seeds that Blake puts together later.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk on it more when we get the reveal, but like, I fucking love this for so many reasons. It's so cool. I've talked about how I like twists that make me feel like an idiot for not putting it together, and this was one of them. I was like when it finally clicked, when somebody explained it, I was like, that's fucking genius.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? We'll talk about it more soon. So yeah, Blake takes care of the ink guy, keeps going, and we find two more others, one of them being the paper girl. So yay, she's back.
Yeah, I thought she got hyenaed, but it wasn't a fatal hyenaing from the looks of it. She's just very injured and holding a grudge.
Well, yeah, I get the sense it's kind of like what almost happened to Blake in the Besieged arc. Like, damage that was enough to knock her out of the world, and now she's back in the abyss.
I mean, it's so good to see her again. Like, it's just a fun little spice amongst all these other, like, nameless horror others that we see.
Yeah.
I was actually a little bit surprised that she recognized Blake, because I'm pretty sure the last time she saw him, he was a human boy, mostly.
Yeah, in the mirrors.
Whereas, now he's gone full Pinocchio. But, I guess, she really wants revenge, so she would attack Blake anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd probably remember, not that she would forget him, but he's the one who stabbed her book. So
yeah, but I mean, he looks so different now. I wouldn't have blamed her for taking a minute to put it back together.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I feel bad for her, honestly. Like, she's obviously not been doing so hot since Blake stabbed her in the book.
Yeah, I mean, this is that whole thing with boogeymen, right? It's hard to feel sorry for them, but also to not. Like, they're all kind of inherently tragic because they've been chewed up by the abyss, but then they're also kind of all monsters.
Yeah.
Even our protagonist at times.
So especially our protagonist.
Yeah. So, boogeymen are so... Like, I alternate for every single one of them between being like, oh, my God, this sucks, and just stop being a monster, you idiot.
Yeah, well, I don't think she's one that seems close to being redeemed, but there are a lot for boogeymen where you're kind of like, you're just like 4 steps away from being neutral, at least.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Blake fights with the paper girl, and there's this really fun mid-air fight. This description that I really love of the paper girl kind of fluttering down from above like a piece of paper. I mean, it doesn't say this, but the image that comes to mind is a piece of paper that you drop and just kind of watch sort of unpredictably fluttering left and right. It's such a great little visual.
Yeah, well, I got the impression she like sort of flips open into a swarm of papers, and it's like a storm of paper cuts. Kind of like how like an old vampire would turn into like a swarm of bats or something.
Yeah.
But just in a way that's perfectly on theme for her, and lets her like fly as well, which evens the ground between her and Blake. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's such a good little fight. Yeah.
And then I just wanted to highlight one other line from this sort of section, which is as Blake is taking a break in the middle of this, he closes his eyes and hears the bells, which is plural now. There's multiple bells, and he thinks, is that even Molly anymore? Was I even Blake or Rusty? And I mean, I'd been wondering kind of where Molly was at as we were going through this chapter. So I love how Wildbow not only brings it up, but ties it back to what's going on with Blake. Like, of course, I can very much believe that Molly is the sort of thing that the Abyss was just kind of very easily able to twist and manipulate. I mean, we saw Blake play her like a fiddle a couple of arcs ago.
Yeah, she definitely doesn't seem like she's the most stable, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Like, I feel like she would have been easily played. And so yeah, I assume she actually is getting kind of twisted into something that is serving the library, and that's so cool in and of itself. But I love how then again we're tying it to this idea of well, what does this say about, you know, our favorite tree boy? Especially because he also thinks like he thinks about how his head hasn't completely healed from what the barber did to it.
Yeah.
And I just thought this was extra interesting because Blake is thinking, oh, well, you know, what's the Abyss doing to others? But he's not thinking, what's it doing to him, considering the barber almost destroyed the last bit of Blake that it made.
Yeah.
So there's barely any Blake. Like, as far as the barber is coming, like, you know, the barber was Blake's father. He barely is anymore because now the Abyss is really Blake's papa.
Yeah.
Because he's mostly like Abyss Blake at this point, it feels like.
Yeah, totally.
So, like, it's just so interesting having this idea of how much is he Blake right now when we're balancing the fact that the barber and the Abyss are both sort of his progenitors of various forms, but the barber's part of him is almost completely gone. Like, what does that mean for Blake? What does that mean for Rusty? I'm so fascinated to see how this tracks moving forward.
Yeah, it's obviously not great that he's back here again, potentially, you know, sacrificing more of himself. I'm kind of, we're obviously keeping an eye on, you know, how he's acting and whether we think there's any more changes happening here. And I haven't seen any really yet, except maybe he's been killing some others with ruthless efficiency. Although the way he deals with the paper girl isn't very cold-hearted. It's quite old Blakey. So I don't know. I'm not seeing anything that's really a warning sign yet, but you're right. It's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I just, you know, as we're moving to the end of the story, it feels like all this stuff is starting to come together, and this line just reminded me of that and got me excited for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you mentioned, so like Blake actually finishes off the paper girl just by getting a hold of her book and sort of getting her to swear never to hurt anyone again, and she seems to agree to it. So, you know, we've got our Blake who is giving chances again. It's to monsters still. But yeah, I mean, it's again, this is just something that's interesting as we're continuing to track it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, something to watch. Well, does Blake just brutally murder things? It's a kind of scale to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
As Blake is fighting the paper girl and kind of around this chapter, he sees a number of books that are obviously just there to tempt him. It's, you know, The Killing of Angels is one. The Lies Rose Has Told You. Like, they're very much titles that are just there to make him read them.
I laughed so hard when I saw both these titles. Like, I'm kind of digging how the library, compared to the Drains at least, feels so unsubtle. Like the Drains was all about just sort of grinding you down in this very oblique way, whereas the library's just kind of like, hey, here's a book that's clearly fake, but like, read it, you idiot.
Yeah, totally.
It's like such a it almost feels like the library is flexing on him, like how much it has him in his grip, and just kind of taunting him as he's in this fight. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it gave me a vibe of, I mean, you know, it's a young place, right? It gave me a vibe of, it's the equivalent of it not quite having fully settled yet. It's still trying to figure out how to, you know, because, I mean, apart from Catherine, who presumably is stupid, because why would you read a book so obviously a trap? Anyone looking at these books would be like, okay, this is an obvious trap. Like, it's so not tempting because it's so obviously fake.
I'd even say in this case, I think maybe the library knew that it was never going to trick Blake with a book, so it just decided to almost taunt him rather than try and trick him with these like overly fantastically sounding titles. Like The Lies Rose Has Told You. It's just such a like the fuck you is right there in the title. Like he doesn't have to open that to get a bit of a gut punch, and it's just Like, I think that's what it's doing here. It's not even trying to trick him anymore. It's just taunting him with these titles.
Yeah, you could imagine a title for one of these books being like, "Oh, how Evan dies before you," or something.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just like, oh fuck, well that's already, the gut punches in the title, like you said.
Yeah, the deaths you are responsible for, or something.
The ways you're similar to Carl listed.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so Blake deals with these others that he's fighting, the paper girl and the other one, the ogre, which seems to kind of get taken out almost by the barber. Like actually no, sorry, it's not the barber that cuts up the ogre, it's another one. But Blake deals with these others very quickly, catches up to the rest of the group, gets accidentally shot along the way, which is fun. And Barbie is down below cutting up some more minions.
Yeah, I loved the little bit where Blake got shot. Like, I thought that was a very understandable mistake from the knight who did it, because he just kind of flies in looking like a monster and is like, "Hey!" Like, of course he was going to get.
Of course he'd shoot him.
But yeah, I mean, the real highlight from this segment is just how fucking terrifying Barbatorum is. Like, even all these sort of others down the bottom clue in very quickly into how off he is, and this isn't normal.
Yeah, they kind of they crowd around him, and he just kills one of them immediately, and the rest are all like, "Okay, see ya."
Yeah, and then like Barbatorum just fucks them up so badly, and I mean, I think we'll see more of that as he starts to catch up soon.
Yeah, he cuts up. We see Blake kind of looks down and sees this raven other standing near Barbatorum, looks away for a second and looks back, and Barber has cut him up into two different things. One is like a man that has had all his feathers plucked, and the other is just kind of this like atrophied mess of limbs. That's horrible. It's great. Good job, Barbatorum. Horrifying.
And I think seeing this sort of stuff in action is finally starting to sell to me this idea that Barbatorum is like as powerful or more powerful than
Yeah.
Like, because that's something that kind of has been continuously reinforced to us, and I always have never really felt that. But seeing how much control Barbatorum seems to have over when he takes, what are already, as we've established, very interesting enemies Wildbow creates, and then he gets the ability to chop them up into exactly the parts he does and doesn't want.
Yeah.
You can really see how when you let him at a number of people, he's just going to be able to create so much chaos.
Yeah.
It's and obviously from a writing perspective as well, it's great because Wildbow can take these already interesting things that he has and also start to break the rules of them by dividing them in halves and stuff. But like I'm finally starting to see why Barbatorum is as scary as when you're sort of in the same place.
Yeah, you imagine, you take a team of practitioners to deal with and the damage you take is you forget half of them, right? But when you're fighting Barbatorum, every practitioner you send against him means he's got two weird, gross, obedient practitioners on his side after he cuts yours up.
Yeah, well, see, when you fight you forget half the people you're with. When you fight Barbatorum, you leave with twice as many. Like, that's the problem.
Yeah, which is horrifying in its own way. Continuing the trend of people putting too much reliance on the stability of these structures, Ellie Thorburn is the next to fall down, and almost falls all the way to the bottom down to Barbatorum, which of course would have been pretty bad, but Blake manages to, in air quotes, save her from falling all the way.
Yeah. No, it seems like a pretty rough landing that these two go through.
But it's not the worst possible landing she could have had, and so in that way it is a save,
yes.
I suppose.
True.
There's this bit where Blake there's an other, and this is where the library stuff starts coming to play. Blake has realized at this point that the library, like most libraries, wants you to be quiet. And so as others reach for Ellie, Blake grabs the hand of one of these others and just kind of breaks it. So this other screams, and then of course it's made a noise, so it's effectively grabbed and killed by some unseen horror, which is a great way of dealing with your problems. Just make them scream until they die.
Oh, it's so good. Like, I love how quickly Blake always goes from figuring out what's going on too, being able to use it to his
Yeah.
advantage, and this is a great example of it. I the concerning bit is right after he does this, he says to himself like, "Oh, the noise in my head is getting louder," which to me suggests that the Abyss is maybe going like, "Yeah," like the Abyss is loving this,
Yeah.
which is concerning. Although I don't know what else he was meant to do there, but it's just again keeping my finger on the pulse of where Blake's standing with the Abyss.
Yeah, definitely. There's this bit where he divulges the secret of the library to Evan. I'm going to read it out. He says, "Quiet," I hissed. "We're in a damn library." For a moment, he seemed stunned. He blinked. I love this moment. It's just so, like, silly that the library cares if you're quiet or not.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of reveal of exactly what's been going on is so good. I mean, I've already talked about how it's one of those ones that seems so obvious in retrospect.
Yeah.
But I didn't piece it together as it was happening. And then I also love it because for the first time we're in the Abyss with like a really good put together more or less group, and there's really room to work together and coordinate and to form strong connections. And we're seeing here that this is a part of the Abyss that's all about isolation and sort of preventing exactly that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's actually that unique because I was thinking on that, and like remember the drains had that like giant like waterfall is the best word I've got at the moment of like water in the middle that was so loud you could barely yell at each other.
Yeah.
Like I think this is something maybe the Abyss does fairly commonly. But it's sort of so perfect that it wants to isolate you further because that's kind of how you end up there. And
yeah, exactly.
That fits the idea of a library, and the library fits the idea of Hillsglade House. Like it all just works on every level. It's so awesome.
Yeah, it really is quite perfect, isn't it? The way every little bit of the library seems to incidentally play perfectly into the themes and ideas that the Abyss is all about.
Yeah, and Hillsglade House, the Diabolist's home, it was so isolated, so alone, like Diabolists always are. Like it just everything. It's just the more I learn, the more I'm like, God, this just stacks up. I love it.
Yeah. So Blake and Evan have a bit of a conversation here, and it's pretty clear throughout this chapter that Evan is not too happy with how self-sacrificing Blake is being, which
Same.
Yeah, same. And it feels like trying to get Blake not to be self-sacrificing is a wasted effort, but it kind of feels like Evan is, I don't know, he sees things coming to a head, which I guess is bad foreshadowing for us as the audience.
Yeah. I mean, he's got so little flesh left. Barbatorum apparently had a good crack at what is left last chapter. I'm starting to think it's more and more likely that there's going to be a very literal interpretation of this arc's name for Blake. If he runs out of human body. Because it's hard not to agree with Evan a little bit that Blake is trying to kill himself a little bit, or like he's too willing to let the Abyss let him sacrifice bits of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it gets me thinking. Like as we're approaching the end of the story, I'm just sort of trying to figure out where I think everyone's going to end up, and Evan is probably the real wrinkle in that for me because we've heard so much about how Blake is going to probably die, and if it was just him, I'd be more willing to believe that. But I mean, I'm hoping not. I'm hoping for an untragic end for Evan. Like I don't think I can cope with a bad ending for Evan. And an Evan ending that isn't tragic either involves him letting Blake go, which will be bittersweet in its own way. But I'm not sure exactly how that's going to be able to happen when there's so little Blake left. Otherwise, maybe Evan's going to actually manage to keep Blake alive, as he has done the whole fucking story.
Yeah, true. Can he do it a few more times?
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know. I'm so interested. Evan to me is something that's really muddying up my understanding of where I think the story might end, and I have no idea where his character arc is going to end, and I'm so excited to see how that goes over the next like 20 or so chapters.
Yeah. Like he's endlessly optimistic, right? And just really seems to be an energy and attitude that the group desperately needs.
Yeah, I mean the whole story needs it for sure. Like I do think we need a shining beacon of light, and Evan is a great fit for that role.
Yeah, totally. So the group is all reunited, and they have this kind of short conversation with everybody, including Johannes, Jeremy, Alastair, all the big players. And then they realize that the barber has almost completely caught up to them.
I love, again, this is Wildbow using the power of the setting he's established, because everyone has to be quiet, so they're also barely moving. So you just get the barber who can't. Well, in fact, he probably can reach them, but I guess he's fucking with them. But he's just standing across, like, sort of staring at them. They have to be quiet, so they're all just kind of across staring at him, and there's just, like, this gap, and just the kind of face-off vibe you get is just sort of so awesome. And at the same time, I don't know if face-off is the right word, because this isn't going to be like an even fight. This is just going to be Barbatorum fucking their shit up if he gets near him.
Yeah, but, he might literally take their faces off, so maybe it is the right word. The sound of him snipping his shears that crosses this chasm between them as well is very perfect.
Yeah, the barber's been using his sheer sound effects very effectively these last two chapters. It's great.
Yeah. There's this moment where Blake says to everybody, like, "Oh, don't look at him, he can get into your eyes," etc. And covers Ellie's eyes, thinking that she's so impulsive that she might just do it. Which, even she isn't crazy enough to do that, right?
No, I think... I just think she's a bit impulsive. Like he's like, she may not realize that she's doing it until it's too late, I think is thinking. That was certainly my thinking.
Fair enough, I suppose. So as the group is kind of planning what they're going to do next, hands reach out and grab Rose, and she's okay. They save her, but in the time and energy that this occupies, the barber has disappeared.
Yeah, I love how she gets attacked because she's like making a plan. You can't have communication in this library. I mean, it's interesting. I'm just gonna sort of jump a bit ahead, but Alistair and Blake really work together here to rescue Rose.
Yeah,
and there is a moment where Rose kind of reaches out for Blake's help, but then there's as they finally manage to rescue her, she has the choice, and she chooses. Well, not Blake, basically.
Yes.
She doesn't choose Alistair, she chooses not Blake.
Yeah.
And I just like this is, it's like a little moment to let the barber get away. But also it serves to remind us that, hey, Blake and Rose, they're working together, but they're just never going to quite be on the same page, so to speak. I mean, that's a joke the chapter made, but...
But you can take credit for it as well. No, you're right. And Blake kind of reads into this moment, suggesting that we as the audience possibly should as well. I don't know. Maybe there isn't that much to read into. Maybe it is just the surface level thing of it's your husband or the monster that is compromised by the abyss. Like, it's not that hard of a choice.
That's definitely a fair read. I think it has more to do with not Blake, though, personally.
Yeah. So Blake, now that the barber has disappeared, kind of suspects that the barber is possibly inside the eyes of one of their group. But without any solid leads, he can't really examine this. All they can really do is continue. And luckily, his worries prove to be false when they get to the top and find that the barber, or more specifically his shears, are just waiting in the middle of the exit for them. They're between them and getting out of this hellhole.
I guess he's tied into the Seal of Solomon, so maybe it is important for him, but I feel like the barber's got the whole theatrics part down pat. He's absolutely killed it this whole chapter and last chapter with just upping his fear factor.
Yes, definitely.
But so this whole train of thought Blake has about whether somebody is basically being possessed by the barber. Like, I just feel like this is Wildbow having fun with the arc title and our expectations. Like, I got on board with this train of thought very quickly because I was kind of like, oh, well, yes, the arc is called Possession and Blake is often right about these things. So I just started going along with it, and then we get the ending, and it was just like, I think this is just Wildbow kind of toying with our expectations in a really fun little way.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. But I am becoming convinced that like Blake will start possessing people soon. Like, I already talked about this a little bit, but I think there's some really interesting stuff we could do there. Because I think we've talked about possession a couple of times in the story, And it doesn't seem to be total control. Like if it's more of a blending of personalities, I think there's some really interesting stuff you could do there, especially with
Yeah.
Blake's personality being as malleable as it has been the last 7 arcs.
Yeah, I think the way Blake was doing the sympathetic magic with the objects very much reminded me of possession already, like possessing an object, possessing its, having its taking control of its mirror form in order to, influence its real form is this kind of voodoo-y, possession-y vibe already. So I can kind of see where that might go if it goes in a direction like that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very interested to see if something like that happens, because I'm sure it'll be a really interesting character beat as well as just being cool.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about Barber kind of guarding the exit to the abyss here. One of the reasons I really liked it is because it's obviously almost exactly what Faisal was doing when they first fell into the abyss. And actually, they didn't notice that Faisal is no longer guarding the exit, which is because he's presumably still inside Johannes. But the fact that Barbie is now guarding the exit, it kind of gives me this vibe that he's just like tagged out for Faisal and they're very much on the same team, even more than we might have thought.
Yeah, I actually kind of assumed Faisal is still just around somewhere up there. He's just staying out of Barbatorum's way. But again, like you're right, this idea of just the Barber being here at the gate really sells that idea of Faisal and the Barber aren't against each other, which is enough, because probably either of them could take out this whole group single-handedly. So they're
Yeah.
just they're so fucked, because these two are kind of both on the page of getting rid of this group, seemingly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad spot to be in, for sure.
Yep.
And that bad spot is where we leave this chapter.
Yes. There's nowhere to go from here but up?
Or back down.
Question mark?
Yeah. We'll see, I suppose. Before we wrap up our episode, though, we wanted to dive into some comments from 5 years ago when this chapter first came out and see what other people were saying about it. So, Elliot, do you want to pull out your comment first?
Yeah, I just pulled out a quick comment by Aname, who mentions that the library also seems very well designed for Barbatorum. Like, we talked a lot about how it works on so many levels, but like Barbatorum's mute, he's obviously working alone. It seems like this is the perfect place for him to just wreak havoc, regardless of like even how strong he is. He also seems perfectly suited to this environment.
Yeah.
And like thinking on what this comment was saying made me wonder how sure Faisal is that the Abyss is just going to easily bind Barbatorum. Like that seemed to still be his plan. Like, let Barbatorum fuck all these guys, and then the Abyss would take it from there. But I don't know. Like, maybe the Abyss likes Barbatorum. I mean, one of the Abyss's favorite new toys was from Barbatorum.
Yeah, I really don't see how the Abyss would bind Barbie instead of just kind of warping him to its whims, which I guess is better. Like a boogeyman is probably better than a demon to have in the world, but I don't know. It's probably still not great.
Yeah, well, I'm curious what the Abyss might do to a demon if it does get one in its clutches, but I'm just like looking at this with Barbatorum so close to this gate now, I'm wondering if that is something the Abyss is actually going to do. Yeah, I mean, there's also this funny little idea that Aname mentioned that, like, it does seem like Molly is being repurposed into the library's security system. Like, it's using her omniscience to act as a security system. Yeah. And I like that twisted inversion of what she has been doing for the last few arcs. She has been this, like, Belle kind of aggravating everyone and turning them into action, whereas the Abyss has maybe twisted her into something that punishes everyone for doing anything. It's a fun little inversion of her role.
Yeah, definitely. It's a nice way to extrapolate Molly out into this world.
Yeah.
The comment I pulled out was from a user called Coda, who basically just gives us a little reminder of how Granny Rose bound Barbatorum, which serves as a nice reminder just to give us some hints on how you might possibly defeat this thing.
Yeah.
The specific quote is, he was bound with a rule-defining diagram of geometric lines and Byzantine notation. which Coda describes as order for order's sake, rules that create more rules, the opposite to a demon that destroys and revels in order and chaos.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just quickly, because I didn't know what this was, Byzantine notation is a different kind of musical notation that's used a lot for like church music, Byzantine style chants especially. So musical notation obviously is something that follows some strict sets of rules in order to create. So it feels like a pretty good opposition to something like Barbatorum.
Yeah. Cool,
So,
I had no idea.
So hopefully that's a way that he can be at least dealt with. I don't know. We'll see, I suppose.
Yeah. But that's everything we have to say about 15.2.
Yes.
If you have more that you want to say at us, or if you want to answer our discussion question, there will be a link in the show notes to the Reddit thread where you can do just that.
Yes, a reminder of that discussion question. It is pick a famous or important place to you and explain what you think the abyss might turn it into. And we'll be going through the answers to that one in 15.4. Is that right, Elliot?
Yes, on Monday.
Yes, 15.4. So leave us your discussion question answers, or if you want to leave us something else, why not leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or your podcatcher of choice.
Yep, if you're looking for more to listen to, the place to go is doformedia.com. There's a bunch of other great shows there. In fact, tomorrow, Media MD is coming out with an episode on the Magnus Archives, which we had Matt Freeman on to bring us that one. And spoiler alert, we both really liked it. And I think it's a great podcast, and I think it's a fun episode that you should check out.
Yes, if you like Pact, the Magnus Archives is definitely the thing for you. It's basically like very Pacty in the terms and subject matter that it deals with. It's even got, very on theme, a lot of creepy, terrifying books in it. Just like Pact.
Yep.
The Lies Rose has told you is totally the title of a Jürgen Leitner book, I'm pretty sure. So that'll come up in the Magnus Archives. If you don't know what that means, listen to the Magnus Archives or listen to our episode on the Magnus Archives, which is coming out tomorrow.
Yes, and if you like Deep Impact, if you like Media MD, if you like any of the other Doof shows, we're entirely supported by our patrons at patreon.com/doofmedia. So there's a bunch of great perks that you get for supporting us. And obviously, it helps keep us making these shows, which if that's what you want, please Patreon if you can.
Yes, while you're on Patreon, why not support the man himself, Wildbow? He has a Patreon, and that's why he's able to write full-time and keep up with his crazy schedule that he's set for himself. So if you want to force him to keep to that schedule, go to patreon.com/Wildbow and throw some money at him.
Yep. And so apart from that, we'll see you all on Friday, the 10th of January, for Possession 15.3.
See you then.